Hi, my name is Holly. I'm 29 and I'm calling in from a suburb near Minneapolis, Minnesota. Got a degree in nuclear engineering and now I work at a nuclear plant.
And what made you kind of choose that career path?
My parents work in business and thought I should work not in business, so got a degree in engineering instead.
Awesome. And how much you make at your current job being a nuclear engineer?
Currently a project manager, so left the ranks of engineering about a year ago. My base is 151,000 with the potential for some overtime.
Nice. And what made you move away from the engineering world to project management?
I liked being an engineer, but I think it's really fascinating learning about money, hence being on this podcast. So this was a way to use that technical skill set, but learn about some of the financials and try to gain some business acumen while still being at a nuclear plant.
Awesome. So you're still at a nuclear plant right now, but moved into a project management role now.
Exactly. Yep.
And how much were you making being an engineer at that plant?
It was a pretty big jump. So as an engineer too, my base was maybe 99,000. And then the project manager role when I took it was 137.
Nice. So you had a nice big jump when you transitioned into the project management role.
Yes, that helped a lot.
And how do you enjoy that role so far? How long have you been in that for?
Just about a year, and I like it a lot. It's challenging. I'm learning a lot of different things. Still get to use the technical skill set and the engineer brain, but get to work with different work groups, and it's exciting to say, something was broken and now it's fixed, or something wasn't there before and now it is.
And what are your future career aspirations? Do you want to stay in project management or where you want to go?
I like the industry I'm in. I'm a big believer in nuclear, and so I'd like to stay in the industry. But open to kind of other positions as it moves forward.
Nice. I mean, you've only been in the role for a year and had a $60,000 jump, it sounds like, over the last year in terms of income. So that's an awesome spot to be in. How would you define your current financial situation? Scale of 1 to 10, 1 being terrible, 10 being amazing.
Maybe like a 6.5, probably better than average. But for where I'm at, I don't know that I've scaled appropriately. So for starting pay, when I started at the plant 5 years ago, my base was 77. But I think, at 24 and I was single, I lived in a crappy little apartment and I drove a crappy little car. And then kind of in one fell swoop, I got into a car accident this year and ended up buying a much nicer car. Now I'm buying a nicer townhome for my fiance and myself. And so I feel like there was a period where there was a really low debt to income ratio. And now that I'm seeing that change, it's definitely been a little bit to grapple with.
So had a big jump of income over the last few years, but also lifestyle expenses with new car and new townhouse.
Right, exactly.
What are your current debts you have?
I've got the car. That's probably the biggest recurring one. Just sold the last place. And so my previous mortgage was $980 with an HOA of $428. And my new place is a mortgage of just under $2,200 with an HOA of $252.
And does that include the HOA of $200 or no?
No, that doesn't include the HOA of the additional $252.
Okay. And your prior one was, so you're about out the door, $1,400 on the previous one, and now it's about just under $2,500 basically.
Right. Basically, it's $1,000 increase.
So definitely a little bit of a jump there. And then in regards to the car, how much is on the car payment left?
Quite a bit. I think I've still got maybe $28,000 on it. Right now, I'm paying $562, which is the minimum. But before the townhome, I was paying an additional $100 to $150 a month.
What kind of car is it?
Mazda CX-30.
What kind of car did you have prior to the accident?
An 08Chevy Cobalt that rolled in the snow. So for me, it was worth it to spend a little bit more on having something that was safe, but it costs to be cool.
Was it brand new when you bought it?
The Cobalt?
No, sorry, the Mazda?
No, it was 2021, so I bought it.
2021. Okay. How much did you put down on that car?
5%.
5% down, and is it over 6 years or is it over 7 years?
I think 6 years at about 7.5% interest.
Ooh, so a nice interest rate on that at 7.5%.
Yeah. So the initial plan was to use the overtime for this year and next year to try and pay down the car in the next couple of years. But I got engaged and now find myself wanting to pay for a wedding instead of wanting to pay for this car. So maybe hoping you can talk me down from that ledge a little bit.
I've been through the wedding and it's a definitely slippery slope when you get to that point, and everything gets a lot more expensive than you initially planned. So definitely we'll talk a little bit more about the finances on that side and the car loan too. I mean, 7.5%, a lot of people have car loans. I mean, they range from 3% to I've seen 20% interest rates on car loans, and 7.5%. You're not going to beat that risk-free in any investment. So it's definitely one that we'll talk about a little bit more in terms of paying it off quicker is definitely a better route for your long-term life and satisfaction. So, and you have the income to do it right now. So we'll definitely dive into a lot of those different things. So that's a great background, I guess, in terms of debts. And then you also have a rental property, it looks like, as well.
Yeah, but that's cash flowing.
What's the mortgage on that, and how much are you bringing in terms of rental income?
I think over the mortgage and the HOA altogether is maybe $1,350, and I charge $1,375. So
$1,350 in terms of mortgage and HOA, and then $1,375 is what you're renting.
Yep. So I just put the extra in the I pay down the principal with the extra, but the property management company for the condo is pretty good with maintenance and stuff. So it's not a lot of work.
Do you have a property manager in charge of the property as well that takes like a 10% fee?
Nope. It's just me caulking the bathtub and grouting the floor.
And we'll dive into the real estate side of it too. I think it'll be really fascinating to talk kind of more about rental properties on here as well. I don't think I've had a guest yet that owns rental property, so I want to dive into some of the things of that, because I'm sure there's highs and lows of rental properties. I have friends and family that have rental properties, and definitely see a lot of highs and lows of those, because with tenants, with maintenance. And so I kind of want to dive into some of those as well. So how long have you had that property for?
Since 2020.
So you have a nice low 3% interest rate probably on it, if I had to guess.
Less than 3.5%, yeah.
And so what are your current assets outside of, you have obviously the rental property that I'm sure has some equity in it. What other assets do you have?
So the townhome purchase, fingers crossed I close on Monday, would be probably the biggest one. Otherwise, outside of that, my retirement, which is about $80,000, and then some non-retirement investments, which is additional $15,000-16,000.
And with that townhome purchase that you're closing this week on, how much are you putting down into that?
I'm only putting down 5%. Everything this year was kind of a whirlwind in terms of my initial plan was to hold on to the condo and use that as a rental property, and then only put down 5% on the next place. And then I ended up selling that because some of the things you talked about, it just wasn't going to be cash flowing. It was going to be a lot of work in order to maintain it. So I wasn't planning on moving as quickly, and I only ended up putting down 5 on a purchase price of $365.
Okay. On $365, you said was the total purchase price?
Yep.
And that previous condo that you sold to, that you ended up selling, how much equity did you get out of that at closing?
At the end of the day, I took home like $6,000, but I only had it for 2 years, so I didn't think it was too bad.
Okay, so after 2 years, took home $6,000. Obviously, a lot of different commissions on the realtors you had to pay, different closing costs. So $6,000, and you rolled that entirely into the new townhouse, I'm assuming, with the...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, and what's your interest rate on the new townhome that's closing on Friday?
5.5.
5.5?
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay. I was thinking. I mean, I've seen most interest rates are around the 7% right now. So,
I went with the new build, and so that helped a lot. Had I not gone with the new build, what I was quoted was like 6.8.
Okay. Nice. And definitely a better spot to be in than I think the national average right now. Is it a 30-year?
Yep.
National average right now is I think 7% or something, just over 7%. So a little bit down on top of that. So definitely not as low as your prior mortgages at 3.5%. So yeah. Comes with the territory of higher interest rates these days. Awesome. And then you have different retirement accounts, $80K in, I'm assuming, a 401k.
Most of it is a 401k. Yep. There's a little bit in a Roth.
Okay. And a little bit in a Roth. Awesome. And then non-retirement accounts, it looks like it's just different. Are they just different brokerage accounts, it looks like?
Yep. Stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, kind of a smattering of things.
Nice. Well, off the bat, it looks like I see you have in here, I'm looking at assets, current value of the home, car, etc. You have 227 in terms of your assets on here. I'm trying to understand, I guess, where that number is coming from. Is that just the value of the properties you put in there?
That would just be the rental home.
Okay, because I see 163.8, I see 36,400, I see 27,000 is what you put in the assets.
Let me pull that up. The 163 would be the Zillow value of the rental home.
Okay. And then the car value, you putting that at the 36,000 or the 27,000?
That's probably 27,000.
We'll put the new townhouse in there at 365,000.
Oh, you know what? I think I missed a zero. The townhouse should have been 364,900.
364,900. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we got rental property worth about 163,000, townhouse 365, car about 27,000, investments 96,000. Savings in your bank account right now about 3,000. So that brings our total assets about 655,000. And then we have your car loan 30,000, primary residence mortgage 347, and rental property mortgage about 117 on it. Does that sound right there?
Yep.
And then we have credit cards, debt, $900.
Yep. Went on a vacation to Europe. So instead of doing recurring debt, I'll normally do Planet with the American Express. So I think if you like pull open the credit card tab I had sent over, you'll see the fees associated with that. So it registers more as like it doesn't register as a balance carried over.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna ask because when I looked at that, I didn't see interest charged on here for the 927.
Yep. So basically I prepaid the interest in order to not have it carry over as a balance.
Okay. Oh, is that one? I see two different cards. Is that the second card that has a $3,000 balance?
Yeah, the Discover card is just, I figure if I've got the opportunity to make points, I'm going to make points. And so I put most of my expenses on the credit card and then just pay them off. So that additional 900 is the like Planet with American Express.
So the top one's a Discover one?
Yep.
That one's paid off in full, it looks like, every month.
Yes.
But then we have the American Express Sky Miles card.
Yes.
That we're not paying off in full. And you're paying about
anything that's like not part of that plan, I pay off in full. And then that plan charges $450 every month.
This Amex card, you have this payment plan on it. What was the total cost of the vacation?
Probably around $5,000. And there was like a residual $2,000 that got put on the plan.
Okay, I see that now. Okay, $5,000, and it's a 9-month payment plan?
Yes. So let me backtrack. Most of the things, if you look at what the fees are, were from expenses at like the beginning of the year. But my plan was to pay off the 9-month payment plan early, went on the vacation, paid for the vacation without incurring more debt, but subsequently have not made it more quickly through that payment plan.
I don't like hearing the words taking out credit card debt to go on vacation. So we'll kind of dive into that because you have the income that you shouldn't be in this situation. So we'll kind of dive into this a little bit further as we go along. But that's some good background with the debt we have here. So total debts we have, including the mortgages, about $496, which brings your net worth to about $158,922. Does that sound about right?
Yep.
And how do you feel about that number at age 29?
Pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great spot to be in. You have a rental property. You have, I guess, you're buying a new primary residence. I don't love the credit card debt that you have with you going on a vacation and the car loan, but you're positive, and $158,000 is not a small number at all. So that's a great spot to be in, but there's definitely, I think, ways that we can improve this and kind of better your financial health as well, because car loan at 7.5% and credit cards that you're paying 10% on to go on vacation is not a spot you should be in, frankly, making $150,000 a year. So let's kind of backtrack it a little bit in regards to just your childhood and upbringing. What was your childhood like? Where did you grow up?
Grew up in the suburbs of Chicago. Both of my parents work in finance. So we definitely grew up in a house that talked about money a lot. My parents met in the States. We're from the Philippines. And so I think this is very much the land of opportunity. So getting a job that was going to have a good income and being maybe more judicious with my savings was always something that was really important once I entered the workforce.
And so at home, what did your parents teach you about money growing up?
I think one of the things, like, not even about money itself, but about like behaviors about money is like whenever, my brother and I got our first debit card, if they ever saw an overdraft fee or like other fees associated, they would always have us call and watch us and like be on the phone with the bank and be like, can you remove this fee? Like, I've been a good customer. And I think that familiarity with the system makes it easier now as an adult to be like, I don't think I should have been charged this fee. Can I get a refund for this item? Like, I have benefits here. Does this cover whatever cost I incurred? So I think that was probably the biggest one, is just that attitude.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a great teaching to be taught. I mean, people don't know that, hey, you can call credit card companies and ask them to waive annual fees. You can ask them to waive overdraft fees. They don't necessarily do it every single time, but it's worth a shot. If you spend a few minutes to waive a $100 annual fee on a credit card or overdraft fees, and it's definitely worth the time at the end of the day to spend a few minutes to try to get those waived. So,
right.
What would you say, I guess, are some of the most, outside of that, most important financial lessons you learned just watching your parents grow up and how they spend their money and talk about money?
I don't think they show their money a lot. Like, you wouldn't know just by looking at them. Or maybe now a little bit, now that they're like kind of in their middle age. But I would say up until the last couple of years, it was, I would say, like a well-kept secret kind of there. their security, I'll call it.
So they weren't keeping up with the Joneses, flaunting money and financing new cars or buying the biggest, nicest house. They were very conservative with that and smart about their money. So
Yeah. Yeah. But I also think like growing up in a town that didn't have a lot of money, one of the things that's been hard for me as an adult who like came from a family that cared about growing wealth and like having those conversations is I feel that separation in what has been my success. And like a lot of the people that I'm friends with or grew up with, right, haven't had that same success. And I think that's difficult now.
definitely agree with that. So where'd you go to college to study engineering?
The University of Illinois.
Nice. And did you take on any student loans when you're going through college?
I paid for like a couple of classes that last year, but for the most part, my parents covered my schooling.
Okay. So not going through school with student loans is a very good spot to be in.
Really privileged. Yeah.
And because obviously student loan going crazy right now with student loan repayments resuming, people haven't had to pay their student loans in 3 years now. And it's definitely an unpleasant situation to be in when, frankly, a lot of people in the last few years have been spending that money that should have been going towards student loans on new cars, on new houses. And now with payments resuming in October, it's going to be probably difficult for a lot of people to pay those. So it's a good spot to be in if you're not having to take on any student loans. So
super lucky.
So what are your future financial goals that you have?
A goal I had hoped to have was in my 401k, have 100,000 by the time I hit 30. I don't think I'm going to do that, but I think I'll be close-ish, maybe within 15K, or if we gave it to the end of the year, 10K. I would really like to have $1 million by 45. I think just having the peace of mind of, my mom got laid off in the pandemic and she made significantly less money the 6 months after her layoff just to find another job. In 2008, we knew a lot of people who ended up losing their homes or their whole financial situation changed, right? And then that impacts their kids' lives forever. And so I think for me, just like having security, keeping that debt to income ratio low and like not trying to keep up with the Joneses, which is hard to do sometimes.
Yeah, it's definitely hard when you see other people buying nice things. And I think those are some awesome goals that you're going after. And I think they're definitely attainable. One, with your income, and two, just where you're at right now. I mean, net worth being about 158. Obviously, some of that is car, if you count that in terms of I guess the car loan essentially nixes that out, but about 100,000 in your investments now, and then you have some decent equity, about 50,000 in your rental property and single family house. So I think getting to that $1 million total net worth number in the next, 15 years is definitely not out of reach. Definitely with investing a lot of money into your 401k and outside of retirement, continuing to pay down principal on rental property and single family homes. I definitely think that's something that would be attainable in the next 15 years. Who taught you about money? Like, obviously your parents talk a lot about money, but I mean, being worth $158,000 at 29, not a lot of people in America can say that. Did you teach yourself a lot about it as well as you kind of got your first job, or tell me about your education process on that?
Yeah, I guess the bulk of it, the foundation probably came from my parents. There was a lot of time on the internet, like somewhere in between Dave Ramsey and Graham Stephan.
Two great people to learn from.
Yeah, albeit slightly differing philosophies.
Yeah.
And then there were really a couple people at work who I really admired in terms of their ability to hold down a 9-to-5 job, but also run a business outside of work. And I guess the ones I gravitated to ended up with businesses in real estate. So
makes sense. And how did you kind of learn about real estate or got you into rental properties?
My parents have a couple, but really when I entered the workforce, there were a lot of people that I worked with who were young and had a lot of rental properties. And that was something that I really wanted to learn more about once I saw, my parents did it when they were married and after they had kids. And so they'd had combined income and had some time to build their wealth before they started that. So I think seeing other people who were, in their early 30s or late 20s be able to do that was really what got me interested.
And your first property that you bought, the $160,000, is it a condo, I'm assuming?
Yep. So it's a condo, and I just rented out the other half to my best friend. And then when she got engaged, I purchased another condo, and then I let her and her now husband stay there. And so they're the ones who still rent it.
Okay. So you lived in it initially, rented out one of the other bedrooms and then moved out?
Yep, exactly.
Okay. And I'm assuming you lived in there for a year?
Yep, just over a year.
To then go the 5% down kind of route. Was your take on that?
That was the plan. But the second condo was a self-managed HOA and a lot of older building. And just kind of running the financials of what I thought were comparable rentals it wouldn't be cash flowing. So rather than take the chance, I figured I'd just pull my money out while I could, take the 6,000 from the sale and put it towards something else.
Makes sense. And in regards to, I guess, cash flowing, and we'll kind of dive into the first rental property. I think this is something that I'm curious is your take in when it comes to a cash flowing rental property. How do you define a cash flowing rental property?
I'm not losing money. Really, the goal is to not lose money on this and just let it gain in equity over time. If I wasn't renting to my best friend, I think my approach might be different. But just to keep that transparency with her and her leniency with me as I'm a first time landlord. So
you're renting it for $1,375, mortgage and HOA about $1,350. So you have $25 in buffer there. At first glance, I would say that's cash flowing, or most people would say, but I guess in this regards, we're not technically accounting for maintenance or capital expenditures or, really, if the AC breaks or stuff happens. So what's your plan with that? Or do you have any cash reserves that you're saving up for that in particular? Or what's your thought process there?
We did have an AC break. It did suck.
$5,000, $4,000?
No, it wasn't bad. They're wall-mounted units, so I think it was like $400, and I installed it myself afterwards with my fiance's help. So again, they've been pretty lenient in terms of the DIY-ness of my landlording. But for the most part, my Schedule E just shows, I may have spent a little bit more in a year than I made. But the property manager of the entire condo and the way that they do maintenance has been super helpful in terms of me as the owner not having to take a lot of that cost on. And my philosophy so far has been, if it's been under $1,000 to do the repairs, I haven't felt the need to increase the rent if it wasn't directly an increase in the mortgage or in the HOA.
Yeah, I mean, typically, rule of thumb, most people will say you should set aside between 10 to 20% of your annual rent in regards to capital expenditures when I guess you have wall units for AC or window units, so it's not as big of a loss there, but just to set aside for when stuff breaks or just typical maintenance. So if you're accounting for maintenance and capital expenditures, you're technically not cash flowing. But also at the same time, I know it's a different situation because you have a friend living there. You don't be like, hey, I'm going to jack it up to $1,500 or $1,600 to make sure that you have a lot more buffer. So it's definitely a little fragile situation on that. And maybe that's something that continue to increase it slowly over time with them. But what I'd like you to have is more buffer than $25 a month, because the AC unit just wiped away all your $300 of cash flow a year because there's a $400 installment. And thankfully you put that in and didn't have to pay someone $100, $200 to come in and do that. But when you're only accounting for mortgage, insurance, HOA, and you're not accounting for these other expenses, you're technically going to be burning money having tenants in there. So that being said, I wouldn't get rid of this property in this situation because it is a low interest rate one and it's right there. I would like it to be rented out for probably about $1,500, so you can at least break even on that with expenses and have more buffer. You'd have $1,200 in maintenance essentially a year on that, $1,800 somewhere in that ballpark to account for maintenance, stuff of that nature. But that's just something just to bring up and talk about because
what
are your thoughts on that?
I think $1,450 would probably be comparable. I think $1,500 just for that area might be pushing it. So I think their hope is to be able to purchase a home in the near-ish future. So I would like to maybe get in there, do a little bit of painting, regrout the kitchen tile, and then put it back up for, say, $75 more. I think $1,500 might be aggressive, but I think $1,450 would probably be doable.
Yeah, and I'm not sure what the area or what the building is renting for, but I think at least renting for $1,450, if not $1,500 range, that at least gives you some margin for error. $1,200 a year if you're at $1,450 versus right now you're really just on that thin line. An AC unit wipes away everything for the entire year. So something to be mindful of, because thankfully it's not if it was a huge house, for example, say you had rented out a $400,000 house and you're only making $25 a month, AC unit goes out, you're replacing that for $5,000 or $10,000. You just wiped away 10 plus years of your cash flow there basically. So it is a smaller property, but at the same time have to make sure that you're not paying someone to live there at the same time. So
sure.
Want to dive into, let's talk about your monthly expenses. So we have monthly income $7,500 a month, just about.
Yep.
And is that accounting for anything with 401k contributions or health insurance, or what's deducted out of your gross pay for that, besides taxes?
Let me verify real quick. $7,500 does not include my 401k contribution, but it does include like my health insurance and my union dues and stuff.
And how much you contribute in your 401k right now?
About 80,000.
It's your 401k?
Oh, not how much is in. 4%. But through my employer, they put in an additional 4% every paycheck, and then up to 5% annually on top of that.
Okay, so you're contributing about $6,000 a year, so to your 401k right now, plus your employer contribution, so about $500 a month. So you're getting about $7,000 a month in net take-home pay if you're removing that 401k contribution.
Yep, that sounds about right.
And expenses then. So expenses, we have your new mortgage is about, you put $2,300 in here, so you're going to be trying to pay this down a little bit extra because you put $2,300, but only $2,134 is due monthly, you said.
Yeah, that was the initial plan.
Sounds like that plan's changing.
I guess one of the things I wanted your advice on is I've always thought it's better to pay things off if you can. So I put a little here and a little there, but maybe it's more worth it to just like, instead of putting that 150 extra towards the single family house, just putting everything towards the car to get it done faster.
Yeah, so there's two routes to get out of debt. There's the Dave Ramsey teaches a snowball method. Graham Stephan teaches more of kind of the avalanche method. I think it really depends on the situation. I'm a proponent of either because as long as you do one, it'll help. But in this situation, I mean, what I would go is I would go car payment first because it is a higher interest rate and a smaller balance. So it's technically first on the chart for the avalanche method and first on the chart for the snowball. I guess it doesn't include the credit card that's sitting there, the payment plan with the credit card. So I would do that first. Would be the first thing I'd get out of, just to clear that up so you don't have monthly payments going towards that at all. I mean, that would be, right now you're making $400, $500 payments a month, it looks like, on that.
Yep.
So I would probably try to clean that up as quickly as possible before I did the car debt, because credit cards are a dangerous game. And if you get behind on that, your interest rate's going to go out crazy. So I'm not a proponent ever of carrying any balances on credit cards, whether it's a payment plan like this or whether it's a 0% interest rate or has a 30% interest rate. I would just want credit card debt gone because it's what gets ugly the quickest. And so I would definitely go the route of getting this credit card paid off first. And then instead of going after the house, I would definitely go after the car second, because then you could throw the $500 from the credit card payment and this additional $150 that you're accounting for, and throw that both out of the car, and you're going to be throwing $600, $700 towards this car payment and paying an extra $8,000 a year towards it and get it paid off a lot quicker.
Got it. Okay.
And then once you get the car payment gone, I mean, that's another $600, and you're going to have then $1,100 a month that's not going towards credit cards payments, not going towards your car payments. Have $1,100 more dollars that you can be investing in your 401k, can be investing in a brokerage account, not going to interest, not going to the bank. So that's definitely the route I would go initially. So pay off the credit card, then go after the car loan. And then after that, the house, if that's something that you want to do at 5.5% interest, I would be a proponent of, there's two routes you can go with paying off houses. I have like my mortgage is 3.7. So am I paying extra principal to that every single month? No. What I'm doing instead is me and my wife, we set up automatic investing into index funds in a separate brokerage account, separate from our retirement account, separate from our other stuff. It's a wholly separate one. We call it our housing fund. And our goal is it's technically our goal is, okay, there's going to be like a delta on it. If we're earning 9% annual return and it's a 3.75% interest rate, then hypothetically we would outperform it by 5% a year. But that at least gives us options to, if when the balance in that account can pay off our house, we can either pay it off and open up our cash flow, or if we decide we don't want to, then we can do that time too, but at least gives us options. Dave Ramsey teaches pay the house off no matter the interest rate as quickly as possible. And that's definitely a route you can go, but I'm biased because I'm doing it the route I am. I'm putting it in a separate brokerage account, but I'm doing something, and it's better than doing nothing. I mean, a lot of people like get a housing payment, get it for 30 years, and if your goal is just to pay it off in 30 years, I don't think that's the route you should go. I think you should at least have a plan on it paying it off, whether it's paying it down immediately directly towards the principal or setting up a separate account, separate from everything else, that you contribute X amount a month to pay it off in theory quicker and have the optionality to pay it off. So, I mean, our goal is to have enough money in the next 5 to 10 years that we have the optionality of, do we want to pay it off or do we not want to pay it off? And it might depend on when we have kids, if we want to open up additional cash flow, or at that point, maybe the stock market's performing better, or maybe it's performing worse. And it's like, okay, we want to get out of our life, or hey, maybe it's been performing well, let's keep it in there. Or hey, we had a windfall at work or something like that, we're going to pay it off immediately. So at least gives us optionality in that regards, and we're doing something. So
Okay, yeah, that's a good idea.
yeah, in terms of debt, I guess that's what we're talking about. I would definitely go, instead of paying off the primary residence, I would go towards the credit card and the car payment first. So we're talking about expenses, and I got sidetracked there talking about paying off the debt. So we have $2,134 for your principal and interest payment, insurance. We have $250 for the HOA, or $252 for the HOA. And then we have, do you know what estimate what your utilities are going to be?
My fiance covers those.
And put a note in there. And have you thought about anything about home maintenance, putting a line item in your budget for home maintenance every single month?
The initial plan before we decided to get married was to put $500 away. And that was really to cover both of the properties. If anything happened with the car, just have an emergency planning stash is what I call it.
Yeah. Okay. So $500 a month, that would be a emergency fund for both the rental property and the single or primary residence.
Yep. And that $3,000 in savings is what that account is.
Okay. And that makes sense. And that's definitely something that is good to have. I mean, most people suggest put away 1% to 2% of the home value a year. And I mean, my wife and I, we have a line item on our budget every single month that goes into our singing fund. And when stuff breaks, and we pull from that, if toilet breaks or we need to do X, Y, and Z, like we had a water pipe burst in December, $3,000. That wasn't something, if we didn't have that in our budget, where's that money coming from? Like we need to make sure we're accounting for those types of things. So I would definitely suggest it needs to be in the budget, because otherwise stuff happens. Something goes out in this new house, you have water damage, or insurance doesn't cover it. You have $5,000 or $10,000, and it's not going to be a fun spot with $3,000 in your bank account, and you have a $10,000 repair. That's how you end up with credit card debt really quickly. So
right.
So total housing, if we put, I mean, the properties, I like to set the other thing you said though is you like putting away for the rental property too, and I definitely agree you should do that. The one thing I want you to be cautious of, and why I kind of suggested you need to have more of a buffer in terms of your rental payment versus like the mortgage and everything, is because yes, right now in your situation, you should save money from your personal stuff and put it into a separate account for the rental property. But ideally what you want to have is 2 separate accounts for your personal expenses, and then treat the rental property as a business that has its own checking account, that has its own emergency singing fund in there. So when you're getting an extra $100 a month on top of what your mortgage and HOA fees and stuff are, that money is accumulating and growing in that bank account, and you don't touch that on the personal side. You don't pull that out and put it in personal spending money, and you don't kind of intermix those, because it gets really messy. Right now, where you are right now, yes, you need to be doing that from the personal side, but the situation, or the goal would be great if we can get $5,000 so we can account for vacancy, if we can account for repairs, $5,000 to $10,000 in there for the rental property, saving up from your personal side. Then let's just put in a separate bank account set up for the rental property and not touch that. And that just be there for when you lose your tenant and she moves out and you have a month or two of mortgage payments, or something breaks and you have to repair it. Just make sure that you kind of keep those separate. So,
okay.
But right now in your current situation, obviously that's not set up that way, and need to save up money to be in that situation. So that's something to definitely work towards as you continue to move forward. So we have total home expenses between the mortgage and the HOA is about $2,400 a month. Doesn't include home maintenance. So if we put an extra, we'll call it $250 just for the primary residence, it'd be about $2,600. Auto and transport, we have car insurance, $171. So
that's down to $128.
$128. Okay. Car payment is $562 is your minimum payment on that. And I see you've been making an extra $100 a month payments towards the principal, and then gas about $150. So total car expenses about $840 a month, which that car payment obviously is a big chunk there. Groceries, you have nothing on groceries on here.
Yeah, my fiance covers those.
Okay, fiance covers those. And then subscriptions, we got Amazon Prime, Delta Amex, Ultimate Guitar, Cooking, New York Times, about $57 a month. Eating out, $350. Entertainment, $250. Gifts and donations, about $265. Health and fitness, $35. Personal care, $120. Shopping, $100. and travel $250. So that brings your total fund money to about $1,400 and total expenses to just under $5,000. That means we should have $2,500 a month left over after accounting for all expenses. You feel like you have $2,500 a month left over after each month?
I think 2,000 is probably closer to where I'm at. I think that's what paid for the Europe vacation, and then the extra 500 it doesn't feel like I have has been towards the Amex payment plan.
Okay, I guess the Amex payment plan is not including this budget right now. That's about 500. Is it five? Yeah, $500 a month, 450.
$450 a month. Yep.
So I'll go ahead and put that in here just so we can account for that. Okay, so with that in there, about $2,000 left over between that. So if we're have about $2,000 left over, and you've been making 150 for at least 137, you said, about for a year, what's happening with $3,000 in the bank account when you're making $150,000? Where's that money going?
This year, I think I made a lot of very expensive, impulsive decisions. So I wasn't planning on purchasing a new car. And then after the car accident, used most of my sinking funds to put money down on the car. Have really tried to avoid selling any of my non-retirement investments. And so it's just been the extra money that's coming in is what's paying for the other things, because the initial plan for the car money was to pay for the big Europe vacation. I just hit 5 years at work, so I took all my PTO at once and spent 3 weeks in Europe, which was awesome, but expensive. So that was kind of like the May, June, July. So I didn't get further into debt, but I didn't really get to pay anything off as a result of it. And then really wasn't planning on selling the condo I was in, but was ready for a change. And so now we're here. And so it hasn't been terrible in that I don't think I've been bringing on more debt, but I also feel like it's been a wasted opportunity to not like put the money in a more concerted effort to like better that financial situation.
Yeah, I mean, at first glance, I mean, talking through all this, obviously a lot of different things in your life have happened this year with that haven't predicted, with getting a new car, using the savings for the car, and then going into debt to go to Europe, which congrats on 5 years of work, but just try not to do that and go into debt. And then obviously now planning on getting married. There's a lot and selling the condo and buying a new primary residence. A lot of things happening at once. You sound like me. The year I got married, my wife and I got a new car, got married, went on a honeymoon, got a house. So a lot of expensive decisions in that year. So I definitely understand the situation you're in and how it feels like money just flies out the door left and right, and have to figure out how to get it back under control and continue to push forward. So
yes, very much so.
Yes, I mean, at first glance, net worth $158,000. Your income is phenomenal, making $150,000 a year, and you have room in your budget if you're hitting these numbers, staying below them, actually $2,000 a month that can be going towards. I mean, you can get this credit card debt paid off, and what's the balance left on that? I mean, it's not
$900. That's basically just a paycheck.
Yeah, $900 should pay that off immediately. This says the Delta card, the balance is $4,000.
That might have been paid off, but that was for like the next pay period. So the only chunk of the plan was the $900, and then the rest just gets paid off monthly. So
why don't you pay it off sooner than monthly? The $450 a month. Why don't we pay it all off completely so you don't have to even worry about it again?
Yes, I should just do that. With the house coming up, I was scared, I guess, to spend more money than I had to. So there was definitely a little bit of trepidation in terms of, would I need that extra $1,000 to get to closing at the table? And so I think that's been my reasoning for not paying it off sooner.
Did that terrify you going to closing, or I guess going to closing this week with $3,000 in your bank account buying a new house?
Well, with everything else out, it wasn't terrible, but I didn't love the feeling.
Yeah. I mean, you have the phenomenal income, so I'm not worried at all in terms of the monthly payment of you being able to afford that or make that payment. Especially obviously living with your fiance and he's taking care of some of the different costs. I mean, it's about 28% or so of your net take-home pay. It's not high in regards to your income at all, but I'm more concerned about, hey, making $150,000 a year, have a rental property and have a primary residence, and I have $3,000 in my bank account right now. That's not a spot you want to be in, because emergencies happen, life happens, and you're going to find yourself in credit card debt, swiping that card, do another payment plan. If your fiance is like, hey, let's go on a honeymoon and we're going to spend $10,000 on it, let's just finance it. We'll figure it out later. So in terms of your current income and expenses, I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about if financial decisions keep happening and you don't prioritize budgeting and prioritize getting this kind of under control, then you're going to find yourself in a situation that won't be the funnest situation in the world. So
Sure. Yeah.
with the wedding right now, what's y'all's plan financially for the wedding?
The plan is to put about 20,000 towards it. Goal being about half of that. So the extra like 2,000 to 2,500 a month we had talked about. So about 1,000 to 1,250 a month would go towards that. And then the other 10,000 would come out of overtime I've got coming up this fall.
And in terms of your fiance's income, is he making money as well? Is he working?
Yeah, he's got a job, but I am the higher earner, and I've got a couple of debts. I think kind of total debt, I probably have more with the car since his car's paid off, but his debt is higher interest, and he's still going to school. So the amount we pay for our combined expenses is kind of proportionate to what we make.
Okay, so you're going to be more so contributing to the wedding than he is before y'all get married, it sounds like right now.
Probably. Yeah.
Okay. Makes sense with being a higher earner to be able to do that. And so when are y'all planning on getting married? Do you have a date yet, or are you still figuring that out?
July of next year.
Okay, so that's definitely attainable and a spot to be. You can save $1,000 a month for the next year and put it towards the wedding. So that's $12,000, and you said you're going to be working overtime this fall. So that's on top of your $150,000 base salary, correct?
Yeah. I think I'll probably hit 170 this year.
Awesome. Okay, great. So that's definitely a spot. Have priorities of, hey, let's save money and cash flow the wedding. The last thing I want you to do is take on credit card debt for a wedding. That will not be a fun spot to be in. But also in the meantime, for the next 12 months, let's figure out a plan to get rid of and start paying off a lot of this debt as well, so that you can be being proactive about all of it as well. Because I think, frankly, starting a marriage where you have less debt, ideally no debt in regards to like consumer debt, but at least improving your situation so you're very close to that. And with your income, I'm not concerned about your current expenses. I'm concerned about, hey, let's get this car payment down. Let's get this Amex credit card paid off. It's $1,000 a month that would free up in your monthly budget. And that allows you to say, okay, let's spend more money on traveling to see the world, or let's spend more money on eating out, or whatever it might be. Or let's save up an emergency fund. I mean, right now we got $3,000 in the bank account. With $150,000, it's great, but if we have $3,000 in the bank account and something happens where you can't work or something breaks in the house, you're going to be finding yourself in a very tough situation.
Sure.
If I was you right now, I want you to spend money and out decide, okay, $20,000 towards a wedding. I have no problem with that. If you're setting aside $1,000 a month from your current budget, so that leaves you an extra $1,000 left over after that. But the remaining $1,000, I would be saying we need to be paying off the Amex credit card that's $450 a month. That's probably it's about $450 a month, and there's $2,500 looks like left on it.
Yep.
I mean, pay that off in the next 2 months, 2.5 months, and then that's going to open up $450 more that you can be putting towards the car payment or towards an emergency fund. And I'd probably do a mixture of both, because you do have the rental property, because you do have just a lot happening in your life, and you spend a lot of your savings on buying the car, buying the house. So if you have the credit card payment and you have an extra $1,000 after on that, we'd have $1,500 a month apart from the $1,000 we're saving for the wedding to be putting maybe $500 of that towards car payments. You're paying $1,000 a month versus the $562, and then put $500 away in an emergency fund that's for trying to build up to 3 to 6 months of living expenses. I would go that route, because just having the rental property, I don't want you to have $3,000 in there. If you get to $7,000 to $10,000, probably $10,000 with the rental property, primary residence, as just a safe buffer in terms of cash, then I would probably attack everything towards that car loan. It is a high interest rate car loan, 7.5%. You're not going to beat that in setting a high yield savings account. You're also not going to beat that investing without any risk. I mean, yes, the average return of the S&P 500 is 10%, but there's also risk associated with that. And if I would rather you not try to outperform the S&P 500 on a 7.5% interest rate loan and pay that off initially and immediately. So I would try to build up a little bit of buffer in your savings with the 2 properties that you have, and everything else just going towards the car loan. And it's going to take some time to obviously pay that car loan down from $30,000 balance down to zero. But if you're throwing an extra $500 to $1,000 a month at it, you'll be able to pay it off a lot quicker than you think. So
okay, awesome.
What do you think about that? Getting out of the credit card debt and saving for the wedding and paying off the car at the same time?
It sounds like a lot, but I'm certainly going to try. And I think the clarity of pay down the credit card first and then just do the car loan afterwards, like for me, makes more sense in terms of like a plan of attack. And like, instead of just putting a little bit towards everything, like focusing the debt payment on one thing at a time.
Yeah, I think it's definitely better just focusing on one thing at a time. And frankly, you could also go the route of, I mean, you could go this route. I'd be a little worried with having a rental property doing this, but you'd keep just $3,000 in your bank account and throw every single dollar towards this car loan to get it paid off as quickly as possible. That'd be following like Dave Ramsey's debt snowball route, where pay off the credit cards and doing that. But me personally, I'd be a little anxious having a rental property in a primary residence with $3,000 in my bank account. So I would like to build it up while paying down the car loan, even though you're going to be inherently losing money keeping a high yield savings account at 4% and having a car loan at 7.5%. I would prefer to have a little bit of a buffer, about $5,000 to $10,000, to at least give yourself some breathing room in case something happens.
For sure.
I mean, right now, great income, pretty low expenses. I mean, have the ability to save $2,000 a month, but a lot has obviously happened this year in terms of all your expenses, with cars, houses, and of that. So let's take a dive into your current expenses for the last 30 days and see what we have in here. So I see you've been making payments to the, okay, so this was a minimum payment, or you just paid off? We have $1,900 that went towards Amex on the 14th, and then $800 on the 28th.
That was probably paying off whatever was due for July.
Okay, the prior balances for those. Okay.
Yep.
And then it looks like you transferred money from another account into your current account for $7,500.
Yep. And so that was for the escrow money for the townhome.
Okay. For the townhome. So not too many expenses here on your checking account. And then we have Discover payment to pay that off in full. And then on the credit cards last month, let's see, on the Discover card, we had $952 in purchases, which on our budget, we had, allocated $1,400 towards total fund money. And we have $952. So we got Amazon. Amazon is, if I had to give you one piece of advice with moving into a new house, cancel your Amazon Prime before you move in, because it's going to cause you to spend so much money on things that you won't even think twice about. And that happened to me when I moved in. I had Amazon Prime. I deleted the app on my phone after like a month, because I was like, every single day I'd have 5 Amazon packages show up at my door, and I'd check my Mint budget one day, and I was like, this is sickening. I don't need to be spending this money. And I deleted the Amazon app off my phone. So now I can't buy stuff on my phone with one tap. So, but just a piece of advice when it comes to moving into a new home.
I'll take the advice.
So we got gas, we got more merchandise. So we went shopping at Levi's, more Amazon, some eating out. So it looks similar in line with most of your budget, a little bit higher on the shopping side with Amazon, but I don't see like the gift transactions and as entertainment on here as well. So it seems
one
pretty
of the
in line
things I would call gifts is like if I am with my family and I buy them dinner, like that's where I would put that money. So it still kind of rolls up to the same place, but
makes sense. But nothing too crazy on here with this card in particular. On the Amex card, though, you got Amazon Music. Amazon Music, $17 a month. I guess that's about in line with Spotify's. Is it the couples version? Because like my wife and I, we share one's like, I think $14 or $17 now for Spotify. So
the tricky part with Amazon is I do it with my family. So that's my brother's, and he'll just sell me back for the money most of the time.
Makes sense. We got a cosmetic store purchase for $346 on June 30th. So that personal shopping budget is not $120 a month, it looks like. A little bit higher
not while I'm blonde, no. But that's a 6-week expense.
Okay. Storage unit. We got a storage unit. Is that going to be canceled when you move into your new house?
Yes. We're staying with my fiance's parents right now. And so we just didn't want to bring all of our crap into their house.
Makes sense. Storage units are easiest thing to get into, and then you don't touch it for years. So
nope, we just booked the U-Haul and stuff. So we'll be out of there by the 2nd of September.
Awesome. More eating out. I mean, looking at this out the gate, there's nothing that's concerning. I mean, I guess you had a party because you spent $140 at Jimmy John's.
That was yes, that was a party.
More Amazon on here. A little bit of travel looks like. Target, $185. Okay, so our shopping is definitely higher than what we have on the budget. So we got some more Levi's outlets and more Amazon. So on this card, we had new transactions of $2,300. Between all of the groceries and stuff, we had $2,300, and then we had $900 other ones. So really, we spent $3,200 on most that looks like our total fund money budgets. So from the expected $1,400, we're actually at $3,200. Were you aware that you're spending that much money on a month on this credit card?
Between like the being blonde and the storage unit, I knew that was an additional like 500, and then the Amex payment was an additional 500, but the other 1,000 still feels.
Well, this doesn't include the Amex payment. This includes just new purchases on the Amex was $2,300 last month.
No, this is still about 1,000 off from where I thought I would be.
Do you budget your money? Do you use like a budget?
Not really. I mean, I did Mint for a bit, but I was annoyed at the interfacing, and it felt like there was always one account that was missing. And so for the most part, I just keep an eye on my checking and then try to make sure I can pay off my credit cards every month. And then my savings and my 401k are automatic deductions. And so that's been kind of the mental accounting I've been doing, but it hasn't been great in terms of tracking.
Yeah. So sounds like we need to get back on a budget tracker. And whether it's, I use Mint because it's free, but there's ones like Copilot that I think Copilot's paid. There's other budgeting apps, but definitely need to be budgeting, especially as you're going into a new house and start shopping, because you're going to wake up and you're going to have $1,000 in your bank account versus $3,000 right now, because you're going to spend more than you thought you had. Or, I mean, these $50 Amazon transactions add up really quickly. And if you're not tracking that, if you're not monitoring that, the money is going to go a lot quicker than you think. So I would definitely recommend, need to get on a budget, need to at least budget. I mean, the budget you sent me over, if you get stick to that budget, you're going to be in a phenomenal spot to save for the wedding and to start paying off this debt. The car loan early and get out of the credit card in a month or two. So, but if you don't decide to budget, I can promise you over the next 12 months, as the wedding approaches, as you're like, oh, these flowers, that flowers, or this videographer or that, or photography or whatever, or these plates, etc. And you don't budget the next 12 months, you're going to spend more money on this wedding than you even thought was possible, because if you're not tracking it, not budgeting it, it goes quickly. So,
okay.
But, I mean, overall, your financial situation is good. I mean, highest net worth of an individual that's come on my show so far. So that's pretty neat to have you on here. So thank you for coming. But definitely need to start figuring out how to save for this wedding, as well as start tackling this debt, because I'm not going to sit here and tell you, oh, you need to postpone your wedding until you get this car loan paid off. But I do want you to be making action towards cash flowing this wedding. I don't want any further debt for the wedding. And I want the credit card debt gone in the next 2 months, because that $450 payment plan, that can be going towards paying off this car loan early. So you have a phenomenal income right now, and you have the potential to save money for the wedding and pay off this debt at the same time. A lot of people, they're living paycheck to paycheck and they don't have the ability to do that. And you have phenomenal income to do that. So then once you get all this debt paid off, you're going to have a lot more money in your bank account, or in your bank account every single month, because you're not going to have $450 going towards credit card payments. You're not going to have $600 basically going towards your car loan. That's an extra $1,000 a month that's right back in your pocket that you can be using on going to travel, or investing more in your 401k, or in a brokerage account, whatever it might be. But right now, without budgeting, you're going to probably be in the same spot 12 months from now, because the wedding's happening, life happens, and if you're not holding yourself to it or tracking it, it's going to be very difficult to stay out of this debt or not paid off early. So
sure.
I think you're definitely on track. I mean, once you do that, and obviously the wedding is going to be a big expense for the next 12 months, like saving up for that. But once you do that, then you can start throwing that extra $1,000 a month towards your retirement accounts, or you can start throwing that towards a brokerage account. And that's going to allow you to start hitting those goals of trying to hit $1 million before you hit 45. And with your income at $150,000 at 29, I mean, you have the ability to do it. And one thing I would suggest too, there's a video I watched. It actually inspired me to start maxing out my 401k with my job. And it's called Money with Katie. She's a finance creator out there. She's part of Morning Brew, but she did a video on maxing out your 401k and doing it with pre-tax dollars and putting the tax savings in a Roth IRA. And I think it's a really great video just to educate yourself on what you can do, especially when you have, in your situation, $150,000 in gross annual income. You would definitely have the ability to max out your 401k once you get out of this debt, don't have these monthly payments, and you can kind of take advantage of the stuff that she teaches and doing that and doing pre-tax dollars. So you kind of lower your tax basis. And then if you're contributing $22,000 a year on that, and your marginal tax rate is, call it 20% just for easy math, I mean, you're going to be able to contribute an extra $4,000 for Roth IRA and kind of almost max that out in that regard. So I'll send you that video after this. Just check it out. But I think it's definitely one to just learn from. And I'm not expecting you to do that over the next year, because you have the wedding coming up. You have moving to this new house, and you got to pay off some of this debt. But once you kind of get through that phase of life, that season, hey, let's start figuring out the long-term game here. Start long-term investing. How do we increase our investments even more? Because making $150,000 a year, you shouldn't be just investing $6,000 a year. That's frankly not enough for where you want to be and hitting your goals.
Sure.
But yeah, Holly, well, really, really appreciate your time today. Really just appreciate kind of diving in, being open and honest and transparent about your finances. I think you have phenomenal income, and once you get out of this credit card debt, make a plan for that car loan, start paying that off early while you're saving for the wedding. I think you'll be in a great financial spot and be able to enjoy life, live life, and have a lot of fun. So
thank you so much for the insight. All right. I will make you a soft promise if this comes out at the end of September to have the credit card debt paid off, but I need 3 pay periods. So that would be, if it comes out the last week of September and you check in, I will try to have the credit card done.
Well, we are going to now schedule this for the last week of September. Do you have a specific date in mind you want me to release it? Which week?
Check in on, if you check in the week of like September 24.
September 24. Okay. I'm going to either get this live on September 26th or September 28th. And we're going to have a check-in with Holly and hopefully have some good news that she's paid off this credit card balance and we start saving for her wedding, have a budget set up on Mint or another platform, and start saving for her wedding and paying off her car early. So that sounds like a great plan, Holly.
Thanks, Bailey.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today.